Hi, everyone. It's John Galante, president of AE Ventures, the folks that produce the Tech Home Builder Summit, the Housing Transformation Summit, that do builderinnovator.com, your content portal for all things home technology, digital transformation, innovation. Thanks so much for making time to visit with me and my special guest today, Tim Costello. Tim is the founder and principal of Built4F. A lot of folks know him from his time with BDX, which he founded and served as CEO with for 20 or so years. He's one of my favorite housing industry analysts and prognosticators. It says here that Avi Rosenthal is with us. He's with us videographically, not in person for this session. I have a little 1-minute outtake that I shot with Avi in Virginia earlier this week. Our topic for today is, we came up with this snappy title, Rebalancing Act. Really, this is directed at manufacturers and integrators and trade contractors, and really, kind of a look at we've had such an interesting market the last 2 or 3 years. It continues to be interesting. We want to look at that a little bit and get a sense for how you might recalibrate a little bit on your investments in terms of your trade partnerships or where you're directing your resources based on where you're going to get good returns. So anyway, I was getting into the purpose here. Like I said, helping the vendors, integrators, and trades understand these market shifts and to do some brainstorming around how to effectively rebalance resources. And our flow for the session is a little tour of some of the stats, facts, and some analysis around that, and then to the ideas for the vendors and trade contractors. So this is a table and a chart that I put together, pulling some of the stats that we compile in our semi-annual stat pack. Sources here are basically averages from NAR, the Realtors Association, Mortgage Bankers Association, and Fannie Mae. And this is kind of the 5-year story here on unit sales, used versus new. So you see there that we had a big boost in housing unit sales overall associated with COVID, as people shifted a lot of their time spent to home and either moved to different homes that could accommodate that or enlarge their homes, and due to remote work, were able to work different places and therefore may have moved because of that. But there was a ton of housing transactions.
I was going to comment on this. I think one of the problems is the scale of this chart makes kind of new home sales almost look flat during that period. First of all, there's 2 problems. One is the scale of the chart, but the second is these are yearly averages.
Yeah.
During this period of time, we had quarters where we had build rates as low as 500,000 units and quarters where we had build rates over 1 million units. So we had 100% quarter to quarter changes during this period of time. And, you kind of don't see it from here. Just in these last 4 years, how dramatic the market has gone up and down. You got to remember, it was going up gradually before COVID. It crashed for about 2 months. It then spiked to incredible levels. And then it began to cool down eventually at the end of COVID in 2022, when rates and prices started to get out of control and affordability started to suffer. Now rates have continued to rise, and everybody I think was prepared for this kind of doomsday scenario of, affordability and rates rising, causing home sales, at least new home sales, to kind of crash again. And what we're seeing is just the opposite. We're now seeing climates getting almost similar back to the way they were during the pandemic, driven by a completely different set of markets. And we're going to see another 50% to 100%, quarter to quarter type change, right? In comparable quarters, not necessarily sequential quarters, change in volumes in new homes. There simply are no other homes available on the marketplace, and people have to buy new homes. So while overall we're seeing new home sales come down, new home sales are rising. And that's a trend that generally never occurs. We kind of follow, total home sales in unison to all cycles. And that really has been completely busted in this last cycle.
This is just in table form, some of that same data, looking at the dollar numbers, and maybe here it starts to become a little clearer, the difference, bifurcated market between new and used right now, right? Where you've got used home sales headed down 14%. You have new home sales going up 12%. You look at used home sales down 15% there, and 5% up for new home sales. So this is where we're starting to see those effects, right?
And of course, again, the problem with averages, right? If you look at just the new home markets in the South, new home sales are up over 20% year over year. They're twice what this national average is. So the problem again with the national average is you're bringing markets in that are shrinking or markets that aren't growing at all. So it's not telling the story of somebody that's building in Atlanta or Fort Lauderdale, any of the kind of the hot markets, across the United States. They're seeing 20+% growth year over year this year. And last year was a good year because it was still at the tail end of the COVID boost.
This is from our friends at the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University. The purchase of those resale homes, moving to a used house, an existing house, is a big trigger for home improvement activity, right? And Harvard describes it in this narrative, the new buyers wanting to do a lot of fixing up and finishing and customization for themselves, before they're fully occupying it in many cases. So with moves not happening, we're starting to see the declines, or at least Harvard is, looking at substantial declines in Q1 and Q2 of 2024 on the home improvement side of things.
The other driver, of course, of home improvement is people that aren't moving. And it's because they can't. They're frozen one way or another and go, well, we're not going to move. Therefore, we better remodel our home. And I think a lot of remodelers are kind of looking at that end of the market going, okay, well, maybe that will balance out this issue, of not a lot of people moving to a new home that needs renovation. The problem with that is the price of home improvements is so large, it generally involves a home improvement loan or revolving credit, meaning they literally put it on a credit card. And those rates have increased also dramatically, as you might imagine, along with home mortgages. So that whole market side of the market is cooling as well. So the renovation market's getting it from two sides. People aren't moving into homes that they want to fix before they live in them long term. And they also can't afford with credit to improve the homes that they are stuck staying in. So I think that market's going to be in a real slump, in a real rut here over the course of at least the next 4 quarters.
Yeah. And in remodeling a house while you're living in it is not a fun activity. I mean, there's a lot of friction associated with that, just physically.
It's a lot less fun when you have a 20% interest rate on your credit card.
So I think I just tried to highlight some of the causes and effects here. We do have a frozen resale market because of the folks sitting on their low interest rates from previous years. We have the high mortgage rates, as you mentioned, Tim, that are, inhibiting buyers for next home, but they're also inhibiting the improvement side of things. We see builder share of inventory increasing actually as well. And builders are also able to offer those rate buy downs, which overcomes some of the psychology that's stifling buys as well. And I think I don't know that we have data to prove this, but my sense is from what I'm hearing at the macro economy level in terms of the Fed's stubborn drive to get to 2% on inflation rate, it doesn't seem like we're going to see interest rates coming back down anytime soon. I mean, I would say we're here for a while, for 9 months to 18 months at least, wouldn't you?
You have to also look at it from a historical perspective. A 7% mortgage is normal. So what you're really dealing with is rates may never come down substantially again, ever, not in our lifetime. The 2 3/4%, 3.5% mortgage rates, those were a once in a lifetime opportunity to lock in rates. The idea that as soon as we get inflation back to 2%, that mortgage rates are going to fall back down to 3.25% is completely unbelievable and lunacy. It's not going to happen. So at best, what could happen is mortgage rates could fall back to 6% or 6.5% or something like, which is traditionally, if you look at this over, a 50-year period of time, that's a great mortgage. Getting a 6% mortgage on a home is a fantastic mortgage rate. The problem is we're locked in psychologically. So new buyers, even if they don't have a mortgage, certainly remember 3% mortgages and 2.75% mortgages and 4% mortgages. So the idea that it's a 7.5% mortgage seems crazy. Now, the other issue is home prices haven't dropped enough to make up the difference. So it's made homes simply unaffordable to them. The other people that have homes and have a mortgage, they're simply not going to give up that low payment at any volume that will stimulate the housing market. They're going to be stuck. They're going to be rate locked into a market and into a home for at least a decade. And that's going to cause a real problem in the U.S. housing market for a long term.
But is there any sense that builders may take this moment to capitalize on positioning new versus used, right? It's like we could say it's all these economic effects, but we could also say people are starting to get that new homes are tangibly better than used homes. Are we starting to get the seeds of understanding that could be addressed?
I would think that would be overstating the situation and probably giving us way more credit than we deserve as an industry. I mean, I know builders believe new homes are better than used homes, right? There's no question about that. But as far as us being able to effectively convey that and a change in attitude, marketing, and sales presentation, there has not been a significant change there. I think what we see is builders are thrilled that there are not used homes on the market. They're thrilled that there are 35% of all the homes available out there. What it means for them is they're going to have more customers as a percentage of the market and more customers in total looking at new homes as an opportunity than they have ever had generationally in this industry's history. It is, again, for them, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to begin to do what you talk about. In other words, if we're going to have 3/4 of the market looking at new homes as an opportunity, wouldn't it be an incredible opportunity for this market to really convey this long-lasting message and embed this message in the psychology of home buyers for the next generation, that new homes really are superior, they are really better, and if you're going to buy a home, you deserve a new home. That it is a huge opportunity. Traditionally, we only get, effectively between 25% and 35% of the market when they're out there looking for a home, really looking for a new home. The rest of them are out there mired in the used home inventory. That's not the case now. They're actually, the majority of buyers are actually considering new now for the first time ever. So it is a chance for us to really drive home the importance of new and the advantage of new and the differentiation of that new product.
What's your sense about builder appetite for selling more of a finished home, really getting more per unit?
I think builders are always looking at that as a kind of a risk equation. How much risk do I have on? And in a challenging housing market, having a lot of stand-in inventory can be really risky, right? There's the time value of money as the finished house is sitting out there. You may have to offer incentives at some point to get rid of it. So your margins end up eroding on multiple fronts. So there's risk in this market. It's really changed the dynamic. There are very few other houses for people to look at. Many buyers, for one reason or another, don't want to go through a custom-built home product from the beginning. They either don't want the challenges, let's say, of having to configure a new home and pick all of the options and all the colors and all the choices and all that kind of stuff, or they just mean they need a home on November 15th and they need to move next month, and that's just the way it is. So they need something available right now. So I think this opens a window for builders to build a higher percentage of inventory homes without the inherent risk of that business model. And it would behoove them to do that. if they have inventory homes available, those homes will sell in today's marketplace. And they don't have the traditional risk that they've had in prior years.
What about build for rent? I mean, is that part of the equation because interest rates are inhibiting buyers, at least at the starter level?
As a business person, the build to rent model is just a way for builders to print money. It is. Think about this. There's zero risk that the home's going to close. You have almost zero carrying cost of the home. In fact, if you negotiate appropriately with your suppliers, you could actually pay all of your suppliers and all of your costs on the same day you actually close the home. You can create a level production schedule so you have none of the variation and waste in the production schedule. I was talking to a major national builder just last week, and I said, my belief is that you could come close to building homes and selling homes for 20% less to a Wall Street private equity firm or a large national single family rental firm than you could selling individual homes to individual consumers. By the time you take out real estate commissions, by the time you take out the internal sales costs, by the time you take out all marketing costs, carrying costs, non-level production schedules, a simpler build of a home, it's just a license to print money for home builders. Now, I will say, as a citizen of the United States, I'm not looking for Potterville. I believe home ownership is a really important part of our democracy. It's a really important part of helping all Americans build wealth and be able to retire in comfort.
Yeah.
And the idea of becoming a rental nation, to me, where private equity firms own all of the housing stock and we all just rent, I don't look at that as a major positive, but I clearly understand the business model side of it, and it's incredibly appealing to most builders.
Let's talk about suppliers to builders and what they might strategize to do given the market conditions. I hope that that folks would be looking for more of a long-term approach. There is a lot of need in the short term, but I think to set up a higher quality partnership where it's not just about moving product at a commodity level, but really understanding the process keys. And the process keys are always a little bit different for every builder out there, but being able to provide those process supports as well as product availability, suited to the target buyer for the builder is important. But, I would counsel, vendors who have some builder relationships and want more to go that quality route, and those that don't have relationships to take that approach as well. What are your thoughts there?
You got to look at what are builders trying to accomplish right now. So you've done a pretty good job kind of outlining the market. We've got this incredible opportunity where we're kind of the only game in town, but at the same time, we are dealing with a high interest rate environment. So builders are trying to figure out how they can, one, build smaller homes. So what can you do to put more living space and higher quality of living in a smaller space? Two, they're trying to figure out how to build cost effectively. Can they figure out how to lower the construction cost of a home? Because that will help them then bring homes in at a lower cost, which will make them more affordable in this high interest rate environment. Next, they're figuring out how to speed up the construction of homes, because as you said, they need more homes, right? Fully available inventory homes tomorrow, right? To satisfy this market. So what can we do to help them get down to a 50-day build cycle, for example? Then the next issue is we still are constrained in this country with respect to labor. That's probably, the supply chain issues have really lightened up quite a bit, but we still have a huge problem in this country with respect to the availability of labor. So what can we do from a supplier's perspective to offer products that simply require less manpower on site to install? And then the last issue is they're dealing with a lot of localized regulation. And this could be everything from solar requirements to electrification requirements to, power management requirements to fire-wise and fire survivability, flood requirements. If vendors could come in and help them solve those problems. So I would kind of look at all of my products, those that I have and those that I'm kind of in R&D with ready, my next generation products, and ask myself, do they end up helping builders build smaller homes that are more livable? Do they end up reducing the construction cost of homes? Do they end up speeding the construction of homes? Do they end up allowing homes to be built with less labor? Or do they solve the regulation issues? And I would hammer on those issues. The idea right now of adding cool, expensive new features to homes in a high interest rate environment, man, that's a tough sell. I would not want to have to walk into a builder and say, I have this cool new thing. It's going to add a couple $1,000s to your home, but it's really neat. I think it's a really hard environment to do that.
Let me ask you about the second bullet here. What about looking backward as well as forward? Is there a way for a trade partner and even a manufacturer to go back a couple of years in the builder's customer database and with the information assets that they have and try to get to some of that retrofit business through a builder?
Well, we've been talking about that for years, that builders, as well as the entire supply chain, needs to understand every home that is put in service, needs to understand what's in that home, and needs to understand how that family in the home will age over time. And as they age, how their needs will change, and how some of the products in the homes will become either obsolescent or outdated, and then target them directly in order to capture that business very efficiently and very directly. I have not seen anybody do that well, but that opportunity is certainly sitting out there, both for the manufacturers as well as the installer base and the builders. I think a lot of your electronic integrators probably have the best opportunity there, or at least the lowest hanging opportunity, because they know what they installed, they know where they installed it, and the home automation and smart home systems, there's so many new products and add-ons that can be kind of easily added to those. They probably have one of the easiest of all of the different manufacturers and suppliers, one of the easiest opportunities in that space.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that there's a particular opportunity for something built in the last 2.5 years? Because we really weren't able to get a lot of things into those homes that we would have otherwise based on supply chain. Is there a way to go back and try to finish the home that way? And I'm not talking just about electronics.
Many times what I find is the manufacturer actually has no idea what product went into what home. Right? They don't know the buyer and they don't know the address. So that would have to be, in most cases, unless you are the installer, and many installers don't actually even kind of keep long-term records in any form, right? That would be interrogatable like that. So So, and by the way, many builders don't either. So it becomes a challenge of who has the data. But I do think you're onto something, that the data of what home was built at what time and what SKU actually went into that home, that is gold to be mined by somebody. The question is, who has that data and how do you get your hands on it? I think you're going to work on your Phoenix conference coming up. I think that when I looked at the agenda, I actually saw some tracks.
Yeah, we have some sessions. Hey, I want to give Avi his 1 minute of fame because he did sit down for me at alarm.com headquarters and answered a few questions. So let's hear what he had to say about this.
A lot of the purchasing decisions of the homes that were bought new in the last 18 to 24 months were made under the cloud of supply chain issue. And so now those integrators have an opportunity to go back, now that we're behind the supply chain and things are back to normal, they have an opportunity to go to those homeowners and say, hey, we had talked about controlled lighting, we had talked about more sensors, we had talked about energy efficiency devices, we had talked about more convenience in your home. Now those products are available. Let's talk more about what we can do to improve your space. And even then, the homeowners are gonna have a better understanding of living in their own home. A lot of times folks like to live in their home 30, 60, 90 days before they make those kinds of decisions. They understand where the smart light switches might want to be, or where the smart thermostat routines should be, or where that keypad should be relocated, where the camera, where there's a blind spot. All of these technologies are important and an opportunity for the integrator to go back and sell to the existing homeowner.
So, Tim?
Yep.
Any closing comments, closing remarks on this topic?
I think my biggest concern is that we won't approach this opportunity thinking long term. You know, you at the very beginning, I think, made a very good premise, which was this is a once in a generational opportunity for a 3/4 of all home buyers to actually consider, look, and shop new. So we're talking to a much larger audience than we've ever been able to talk to. And there's an opportunity here to cement the value proposition of new into an entire generation. And my fear is we may squander this with greed. And instead of thinking long-term and strategically of how we could cement the value proposition of new into the vast majority of future home buyers, what we're going to do is we're going to say, oh my God, there's no used homes for sale. New homes are the only game in the market. So let's charge, way more, and let's have terrible customer experiences, and let's kind of take advantage of the fact that we have the upper hand right now. And we saw, you say, oh, then that would never happen. We saw this happen during the pandemic. We saw a complete behavior change by builders in how they priced homes. Their customer experience backslid. Their customer satisfaction scores went down. And this can happen again during this period of time. And I just would remind us that, these markets are cyclical, and we need to be our best every single day. And let's put on our long-term vision, our long-term hat, and let's do something good for our industry that will pay dividends for the next decade.
Great message. Something that we'll all be working on at the Tech Home Builder and Housing Transformation Summits. Next event is November in Phoenix, and then we'll be in Nashville and Pasadena next year. You've got Tim's information there, his new website, new practice. And then if anyone on the phone here is interested in sponsoring and not on board already, Colin's email address there, and I'm reachable at my email address as well. Tim, thanks so much for making time on your drive through New Mexico, or where you're in a coffee shop or something there. But
you can probably hear a little background noise, but
you can't hear it, but great perspectives. Really appreciate it. We'll see you in November, and we'll see you next time on our webcast as well.
Thank you to the whole AE Ventures team. Appreciate it.
Thanks.